My name is Matty and I am an alcoholic.
Matty.
My sobriety date is March 31st, 1989. I have a sponsor. I'm a member of a home group, actually a couple. A member of the East Naples Men's Group.
Really
we meet in Pembroke Pines, Florida. Beginners meeting at 6. Home group meeting at 7:30. We're proudly represented by that table in that area there. And I'm also a lifetime member of the Belford Clearview Group, which meets in Middletown, New Jersey. Last summer, Amanda graced us with her presence there. And tonight we're on step 8. First, congratulations, Giselle. Love you, Giselle. That's perfect. Awesome. Tommy, I'm very fond of the Salvation Army. It's an incredible place that have given a lot of the men that I know a second chance at life. So I keep on embracing it like that. And Spence, it's been fun this 2 years to watch him, man. You want to hear somebody tell a joke, go to Thursday night, Alcoholics and God, when Spencer does the joke. Guy's got a drop dead pan delivery. Perfect. So here we are. Extra credit, like we've been doing every week. First, I just wanted to say this. It's medallion night, and I made a joke, last month when it was anniversary night, and what it's like for me in South Florida when I first got here 6 years ago, that I wasn't accustomed to the medallion tour. Guys picking up 5, 6, 7 medallions. In New Jersey, you had one home group, you picked up one medallion, and that was it. So I started to, first couple of weeks, I started to bring them with me and mention it. And one was Sheldon, one was Anthony, guys. They gave me a 36-year medallion this year. And I brought this one not knowing he was going to be here today. And it's from my friend George Parsons. And I got to meet his lovely daughter. And it's Bill and Bob. Unity, recovery, and service, which is our thing that keeps us together. And these are the men, if you don't know who they are, it's those 2 men on that wall there. And they've saved our lives. Their introduction to each other, their faith in a God of their understanding, changed the world. I've shared a number of times. My second sponsor was a fellow by the name of Bob Helm. Bob was one of the smartest men I ever knew. He was an engineer. He was a sand hog in New York City, which is guys that go underground and build tunnels. And he would go to Saudi Arabia and Iran and Iraq back in the day. And he would say, if Bill and Bob were Roman Catholic, they'd be naming churches and schools after them, because they would be canonized as saints for the miracle that they performed in the millions of lives that they had saved by an off-chance meeting in Akron, Ohio, nearly 90 years ago. Right? How cool is that? So we get right to extra credit, George. Thank you. What's the principle of step 8? All right. Awesome. All right. You'll get 2 gold stars. What's the city of brotherly love? Now, with distaste in my mouth, growing up in New York and New Jersey, and being a longtime New York sports fanatic, I love the city of Philadelphia, but I hate almost every other part of it. And that goes for a lot of the people that come from there. So that's what I do. But I say that lovingly. But
wow.
I didn't know. I found out years back that the Greek, what do I have here? The Greek root for brother, love of brother, affection, family, is philia. Philia. Jimmy knew that. And therefore, that's how we got Philadelphia, the city of brotherly love. So I always share with you guys, I worked with Ronnie from April of 1989 to June of 1990 the following year, about 15, 16 months, my first sponsor. And we went through the first 9 steps together. And he, like Bill and Bob, changed our lives. He certainly changed my life. And I've been saying, with you guys every week that we would have a little gift name things for these things here. So he wasn't a guy to do 6 and 7 together, nor do 8 and 9. They were separate. He felt that he had to have equal time. So we would break it down that way. But we grouped them together in our description. And it's repair. Repair. I was lucky enough to hear Miss Paulette, a couple of weeks back do her step 8 at Alcoholics and God. And she had said, step 8 is about relations, right? Broken relations, damaged relations, healthy relations. As you get sober, it changes. But it's about that kind of relation. So step 8 for me is what we would do we called it repair the damage. Repair the damage. And it's about an inventory. If you're not a list guy, I like making lists. I'm pretty structured. I don't mind that. But here we are with another inventory and another list. So if you're going to stick around, if you're new and you want to work these 12 steps, please embrace the fact that you're going to be doing inventory and you're going to be making lists and you're going to be talking to people. And like tonight, I had to share with a fellow recovering alcoholic that you're going to tell things about yourself that you promised you'd go to the grave with. And if you do that, you can be free, right? Stevie B, right, would always say, how free do you want to be? So, George, do me a favor. Would you tell the audience tonight what step 8 is?
Oh, what?
Off the board.
Step 8. Oh, really?
Yes.
The meaningless of all persons breathe hard became willing to make amends to all.
Perfect. Thank you, George. Thank you. When we both got to step 8, and again, I knew it was another list. He warned me, but it didn't do any good because fear was already, I was looking at step 9 when I was on step 1. When you would look them over, you hear a lot of guys say, all right, I'm going to do that one. I won't do that one. I'll just brush over that one. And if you have good sponsorship, that's not going to happen. But early on, I was already worried about step 9. Fear. Fear was gripping me. How can I possibly go out and make amends to all these people that I had harmed? So I think if you remember back when I was talking about doing the 4th step with them, so I was fresh from coming out of Century House out of Red Bank, New Jersey. Week 3, you do your qualifications, you write your life story, and you read it to the other mental defectives that are in rehab with you. And I kept that, and he kept pushing me. It's a couple months now. Come on, where's your 4th step? Where's your 4th step? So we met at our home group, and I was going to meet him the following weekend to do my 5th step with him. So he said, let me see what you have. And I'd share with you guys. I presented to him one of the most magnificent written screenplays that you'll ever read, my life story, And as he had said, we'll get Richard Gere to play your part in this, but this is not, and he had a nasty word, blankety blank 4th step. So go back and do it right and meet me this weekend, which I did. So now I'm like, that's fresh in my mind. So now, all right, we're on another inventory list. I'm going to show him. So he said, get your 8-step list together. Now that was, we had gone over the 4th step in harms. I know when Paul does his with his guys, he makes them take out a separate paper when they're doing their 5th step. And then writing down the names of the people you had harmed. And I've grown accustomed to that. And then Pat Rogan comes along, and they have this, and it's by far the best. Can I call it a cheat sheet? Would you be offended if I said that? No. Step 8, lists and columns. Love it. Who did I hurt? What did I do? What was the harm? here's the hard part, plan for the amends, and then it's the time. Now, later, can't, and then you get to make that check mark, addressed. Yes, I'm done. So when it got to that, and it was time for me to do that, so again, I'm still a little bitter about his reaction to my 4th step. So I said, I'm going to show him. So I come with my 8th step, and it's like 12 pages. And he started stumbling through it, and he said, do you do this to me on purpose? Are you doing this to me on purpose? What are you talking about? He looks at it, he said, read it again. And we went into the key word of harm. He says, you have listed here for me. Let me see if I can remember perfectly how he said it. He said, you have listed here for me from the doctor that hit you on the ass the minute you were born to the last bartender that you stiffed. That, Matty, is not an 8-step list. What's the key word? 2 of them, really. All and harmed. And harmed is a pretty savage word. Hurt, harm. If you harm, when you're sober, and I hope you don't, but sometimes we do, either real or fancy, or by mistake, or unavoidably, or sometimes on purpose. If you harm somebody, that feeling that you get, if you're on good spiritual ground, will eat you up. At least it has for me. And I've made mistakes, and few of them in sobriety, that I would have to go and later on, to make amends. So when we did that, we went back and we went to that, and we started with the list. And from mine, I just broke it down. When I do this is before we had this, but it still works, that I broke it down into 4 columns. Family, friends, creditors / employers, and deceased. So that was that. So I wanted that as checked off one as quick as I could, and I didn't have that. But I took the low-hanging fruit right away, which naturally, it started with my wife. A lot of people will ask, do I put my name at the top of the list? Do I put God's name on it? And if we read it, it's not about you. It's other people that you've harmed. God knows what you did, so you don't, he doesn't want to hear from you again. He wants you to go out there and clean it. People that you had harmed. So I started with the low-hanging fruit. My wife, my brothers and sisters, my kids in general, they were very young at the time. They really didn't even know that much by this point in time. But then it got to be some of the hard ones, and when you get into your relationship column and things like that, or past relationships that they are of people that you really harmed and hurt, that was the hard part. So we just said, remember, get off the laser focus on 9, and just remember, we're writing a list. You're going to write this list, we're going to review it, we're going to set up a little plan about how you're going to do it, and just take it easy. So then, I have all my notes. So before I get into the 12 of 12, we're just going to go into the big book part. So it started off page 77. I have my column that Bob Davis said at the end of Step Saving the other day, when you finish your 7-step prayer. And it's again the word that Paul and I use a lot, right? Our favorite least used words in AA, and one of them is perspective. And Bob Davis, a new perspective. Step 7 is finished. You've spoken with your God. Those defects you've asked to remove, and now comes the assignment, right? Right off the bat, as we always talk, Bill doesn't want anybody waiting. There's no waiting. You get an hour after that. Now we need more action. without which we find that, and here's the world famous quote that's known for millennium: faith without works is dead. Let's look at steps 8 and 9. We have a list of persons already from our fourth step whom we've harmed and are now, Don Fusick, wherever you are, we are willing to make amends. Thank you, Pat. We are there. And how do you do that? Well, here's the clear-cut directions. We attempt to sweep away the debris which is accumulated out of our effort to live on self-will and run the show ourselves. Early on, they talked about the actor. A little bit after that, they talked about the director. What's the common theme there? That we run the show. It's all about me. It's all about me, right? If we haven't done this, or we don't have the will to do this, we pray and we ask until it comes. Remember, it was agreed that that at the beginning of all of this, when you started, when you admitted you were powerless over alcohol, you admitted what? That you'd be willing to go to any lengths. And then Bill gives you such a beautiful word that we all can identify with: victory. How cool is that? Victory. Everybody knows what victory is. You've accomplished something. I don't want to say you've won, but you're victorious. Because for that day, those defects have not made you drink or drug. And then there's, okay, now I got to go out and do this. Possibly there's some misgivings. Maybe some business acquaintances or friends that, that I have that, I owe money, and I don't want to pay them. But I know that if I don't, I'll drink. We were told all that. Then we went into, again, it'll be a little bit more on the 9th step about the 3 rules and stuff that we get in. And again, I hope he doesn't get tired of me complimenting him, but I've learned so much from Pat. He said this, and I wrote it down. Who gets drunk? Hypocrites. Hypocrites get drunk. If I'm portraying an image and not living up to it, I'm a hypocrite. If I talk the talk but don't walk the walk, I'm a hypocrite. And eventually hypocrites will get drunk, because that will eat you up, and the only release that you have is to drink. But there's such a better way. There's such a better way. In the 12 and 12, there's some great stuff there. 12 and 12 will start to tell us what we need to do, the direction that we need to do. Here's the path. Here's the path that we follow. We go out to our fellows and repair, again, the word that Ron and I use for 8 and 9, repair, and repair the damage done in our past. We're not worried about the present. Thankfully, we're not acting in such a way that we have to. That's a 10-step issue. You should be doing your 10-step at night, if you're not even there yet. Just review your day. But our real purpose is to be of maximum service to God and the people about us. So again, we have the 4th-step list becomes your 8th-step foundation. And it's about these few things. It's about forgiveness to myself initially. The only time I get to forgive myself are in these steps here. You guys know when, Tuesday's a gym day, so I'm at the gym on Tuesdays, and instead of listening to, who was I listening to? It wasn't the Killers. I think the recording company or Bon Iver or one of those guys there. I was listening to Ray O'Keefe. And Ray broke it down when he leads into step 8, and it's so easy and simple of how he affects it. And they were just 1 and 2 word answers. He says, you walk in the door, you're at step 1. It's about your physical part, right? You're powerless, you're physically beat up. Boom, you're on step 2. It's your mental part, right? It's proven there. Boom, you're at step 3. It's your spiritual part. Remember, he called it steps 1, 2, and 3 was like the triage. You're stopping the bleeding. You come in here butchered, for some of us, broken, and he stops the bleeding. Step 4, they put you upstairs in a nice, comfortable room, you know, because now it's about me. 4 and 5 is about me looking inward with myself. Where were my faults? Where were my resentments? Where were my harms? Where was my fear? Where was my sex conduct? You know, how to look at it's all about me. 4 and 5 is about me and me explaining it to someone else. And then he said step 6 and 7, Tagain, is all about, it's no longer about you, it's your relation with God. Who do we run to? Who do we ask? Who do you get on your knees to ask to have these defects removed in 6 and 7? God, the God of your understanding. Steps 8 and 9, and then it was, again, what Paul had said about relationship. But we called it, and Ray called it. Remember there was a, Rolling Stones had an album, Tattoo You, and they had a great song called Emotional Rescue. Right? Emotional Rescue. Dale, you can sing it later, but not tonight. Emotional Rescue. And that to me, when I work with my guys, is the essence of step 8. Because my emotions now are starting to come in. I'm understanding these defects of character, how emotionally they beat me down, but the light that's there, and I'm rescued. I'm rescued on step 8 and 9 if I complete it. And then again, remembering that step 8 is just a list. There's warnings, right? We went through the whole thing. He knew I was coming before I was there because Ronnie reminded me of these 2 words. He says, remember, Matty, there's no such thing as purposeful forgetting. You know, maybe if this happens, maybe if I run across this guy, maybe if I see him, you know. I never thought when I would hear in early recovery about if you're walking down Broadway and you see somebody that you owe money to, or you harmed, or you did something bad to them, and you would see them on coming down, and you would cross over the street because you didn't even want to make eye contact with them. When you complete these names and that person's name is on the list, you're able to make those amends, then you're a free man. And how cool is that? But if I purposely forget, maybe that's not that important, and if I continue to do that, I'll drink. That's the importance of good sponsorship. 12 and 12 is awesome. If Thomas had a flat, Black Betty had a flat, and he's on the side of the road, so he's not making it here, but him, the songbird, and I were talking about the other night, and I mentioned it to Jan a couple weeks ago. I've had guys come to me and they say, if you could tell me in one short sentence, why am I an alcoholic? Just give me a couple sentences. Point me in the right direction. And there's many ways to describe it, right? But I learned from him early on, and I've said it to hundreds of men and women, that if you want to know why, we'll go to page 80, step 8, in your 12th book. And it's about making restitutions, right? You've cleaned up all that stuff. You're ready to cross into the land of the free in step 8 and 9 once you do that. But it says this, why am I an alcoholic? So they talk first about the restitutions. Well, the purpose of making restitutions to other is, man, he could write, is paramount. It is equally necessary that we extricate from examination of our personal relations every bit of information about ourselves and our fundamental difficulties that we can. 6 and 7, those defects of character, those fundamental difficulties. Why am I an alcoholic? Well, here's the answer. Thank you, Bill Wilson. Since defective relationships with other human beings have nearly always been the immediate cause of our woes, including our alcoholism, no field of investigation could yield more satisfying and valuable rewards than this one. How do I do it? I've reflected on that, my defective ways of having relations. If I'm drunk from 14 to 34, alcoholically drinking, how could I have nothing but a defective relation? You know, I've shared with you guys, when I got married, I had brief points of sobriety, tragedies in my family that I promised my mom I wouldn't drink. You know, smoked a lot of dope and snorted a lot of coke, but I didn't drink because I promised her that, and I kept my word. You know, but it would get to be that emotional disturbance. Then we go on going into this, and such a roster of harms than others is the kind that make daily living with us practicing alcoholics difficult and often unbearable. Could be extended almost indefinitely. Now he's pushing us in to make those amends it tells you about the office and the friends and stuff like that. And that's what I had to do. So after we got over the thing about the doctor and the bartender I stiffed, we got down to the causes, the conditions, and that, and who I hurt. And I had to go back in my memory. He would tell me, and we would read about it over and over. Step 8 leads to step 9. To make amends, we need to be clear on who we have harmed, right? It's not the doctor, it's who I harmed. You know, my family, my friends, people that had faith in me, and I told them I would be there for them on these occasions, and because I drank the night away, ended up in after hours, woke up in places that I shouldn't have been, and just blew it off. You know, I was one of those guys that I would end a relation. I would tell a young lady anything to do everything. Promise them everything and do nothing. And the easiest way for me to do that was just stop. I just left. I would just walk away. The hurt that was done to these people that cared about me. But as an alcoholic, with the laser focus, which I used the word before, that all it was for me was about me. That's hard. And I knew it was coming, that he encouraged me to do it. He told me, listen to this. Right? We're clear on who the amends are. We've narrowed the list down and we know who it is. And then the list that would be better about who do we hurt and how am I going to make it right. Don't let our defects of character, of procrastination, sloth. Yeah, I'll do that tomorrow. He said, are you going to go see such and such? Do you do that? I said, I'm going tomorrow. How did it go? This came up, that came up. And he just said to me, if you're not going to do this, you're going to drink. And I had to do it. And then you get one or two good ones, and then you get pumped. You know, most are well received. Not all of mine were, but I had it coming. I certainly had it coming. We go to all the people on our list. Ray O'Keefe would say, the only people that he thought that he harmed were the ones that caught him. Right? If you didn't catch me, then I didn't harm you. You know, if I stole from you, you know, and you didn't catch me, why do I have to go to him for it? He doesn't know. You know, the delusional thinking of the alcoholic, right? Or we say a couple weeks ago, sugar-coated thinking, right? And then there's the harms, the physical, the emotional. We went into the Collins family, business, and friends. Ray said when he got to this point and he starts to make his amends, he started to look at his list and everything that he'd done, and then he realized it was like an elaborate waking, as it was for me. Because I woke up on this point at the end of this alcoholic run, life done, hopefully done. And I look at the list and I realized everyone had gone away. All the important people in my life who loved me and cared for me had gone away because I pushed them away. Intentionally, unintentionally, but that was what I did. It was the end of isolationism when you start to do this list and do it. We talk about loneliness, right? It's going to jump. This is my favorite. I've shared this with you. The first time I ever read this, in Century House, they didn't have Where and When's. New Jersey has meeting books, and it would have this logo on the cover, and you would open it up, and it was this quote from page 152. From A Vision from You. And it was titled The Unhappy Alcoholic. You've heard it a lot. But when I first got this meeting book and I read this, you know, when certain things you read, you identify with immediately. And man, it starts about the boy, you're sober, your program's a little shaky, maybe more than a little shaky. You're really not doing a thorough job on your steps at this point in time. And Ray describes it as this: we know our friend is like a boy whistling in the dark to keep up with spirits. He fools himself. Inwardly, he would give anything to take, not a drink. We're alcoholics. Inwardly, he would give anything to take half a dozen drinks. Half a dozen I was calm after half a dozen, right? 6 shots of Jack, 3 bottles of Heineken. I'm okay. I'm okay. He will presently try the old game again, right? What's the old game? Boom, that lifestyle, right? Here's the unhappy and alcoholic, the loneliness, because he cannot picture life without alcohol. Someday he will be unable to imagine life either with alcohol or without it. Then he will know loneliness such as few do. He will be at the end. He will be at the jumping off place. He will wish for the end. Yeah. Now, the end isn't death. It is for a lot of us. You know, the end is the misery that you're putting yourself and your family through. It can all change by completing your 8th and 9th step. We had... When I look back on it, and I was, you know, when I had who I had hurt, and then who am I going to go to now, later, and can't. Here's a great example, and I'll share this with you. I remember I told you when I'm sober about, I worked with Ronnie 15 months, about 16 months, right? I had shared with you guys, I didn't have a job at the time. I had lost my license. I had lost my home. Thousands of dollars in debt. And 3 men reached out that loved me and got me into rehab, and my journey began. You know, so when we started this here, and we went down into that, and then I would work with him about, you know, what I was going to do. And these people, by these amends that I was making or started, I got a job back. I started to pay back some of my debt, and those things were there. Because I got to find out that my real purpose is to fit myself of being maximum service to God and the people about me. I owed these people about me the direction that God was pushing me in. And then, as you know, the guy's always on the big book seminar talks about the types of amends: financial, criminal, and domestic. You know, you have to be prepared for all these things there. I thought it was the corniest thing in the world. Every summer at my grandmother's house, we had the Fearon farm. And as a kid, I would go up, and Mr. Wallergren next door was a dairy farmer, and us kids worked for him. And he had one of those cyclone cellars. So when I read about the farmer pop coming out of the cyclone cellar after the tornado had ripped through all of that, and he looked, Ma, the wind stopped blowing. Right? So what does that mean? I would look at, what the hell does that mean? And he said, just think about it. Your life, your defective alcoholic life, you tore through the people that loved you and destroyed it. You blew it out. And now it's repair time. You come out and thinking, the sun is shining. That was always my thing. I'll get back. I can fix this. I can fix this. There's nothing like another drink to start off with, and I'll come up with a plan. That's not like that anymore. It's not like that at all. The AA problem, steps 8. The program itself, and what's been said many times, is one big amend. All 12 steps is one big amend that we're going to do for the people that we love. And here's what I have to do. So before I can settle any of that, I myself must look inward. I have to be on good spiritual ground with the God of my understanding. And you guys know how I feel about that. It's my Heavenly Father, His loving Son, Jesus Christ, and a beautiful and caring advocate, Holy Spirit, that shows me the way. That's what keeps me going. Today. It wasn't back then, but it is today. Because that has shown me the source of where to look for my moral and physical devastation that I've done to others. So we're going to end. We know we'd like to start with prayers and end, but I'm going to end with, because if you read, my daily readings is, I have 4 books, sometimes 5 that I read every day. And one of them is the Daily Reflections. This is what I wanted to say first. I got 2 minutes, I'm going to read. This was, I always do, Clarissa, where is she? I'll get it to you. This was the opening prayer I was supposed to have said. Dear Father, please show me loving kindness and compassion towards others without expecting anything in return. We are finally on a step 8 and 9. We'll get to 9 next week, where it's no longer making things right within ourselves. We can start making things right with others. That's the purpose of step 8. The list will then put you on into that. So you go to your little app, and if you don't have this app, it's called Everything AA. It's free. Please do it. You can put your day count in there. Trying to be humble, so I'll tell you this. So it's 36 years, 1 month, and 27 days, or 13,206 days, 1 day at a time, that I've been sober.
Nice.
To that. I didn't listen to that. There's people in that room in this room particularly, may not agree with that applause. But so if you read today's daily reflection, when I read it this morning, it made me think of step 8, knowing that I was coming here, because it describes the pressure sometimes. It talked about maudlin guilt, tearful, scary, maudlin guilt, the kind that just twists you up like that. But here's Bill and his genius, as always, from Bill Caesar, page 15. Day by day, we try to move a little toward God's perfection. So we need not to be consumed by maudlin guilt. And listen to this. This is so cool. Now here's the recovering alcoholic that wrote the verse, which is what they do in daily reflections, right? So in the first person singular, he says, when I first discovered that there is not a single don't in the 12 steps of AA, I was disturbed because this discovery swung open a giant portal. My life opened up. I was on good spiritual ground. I could see 2-3 plays down the field. Only then was I able to realize what AA, the fellowship, the triangle, recovery, unity, and service, has done for me. Listen to this. AA is not a program of don'ts, but of do's. AA is not martial law, it is freedom. AA is not tears over defects, but sweat over fixing them. AA is not penitence, not going to jail, it is salvation. Frees me. AA is not woe to me for my sins past and present. AA is praise God for the progress I am making today. And ladies and gentlemen, please remember, keep your eyes above the waves. Love you.